Hi, witches. I'm Blair Bathory, and this is the Something Scary podcast. Thank you so much for being here, whether this is your first time or you're one of the brave souls who join us every week. And once again, I'm bringing you a video version of the podcast. We're working really hard to get this out to you every single week. And I know a lot of things have changed and there's new things and elements being added. So I appreciate the constructive criticism and the comments. I'm trying to read and respond to as many as I can. So keep it up. Sometimes we begin questioning what's real and what's reality. Once you start down that path, there's no turning back. The line between truth and delusion blurs, and the shadows and voices around you grow sharper. What feels safe today may unravel tomorrow. Beware of the whispers in the dark, the flickers in the corner of your eye. These thoughts will grip your mind, and once they do, you can trust nothing, not even yourself. First, the mirror never lies, followed by too late to listen. Finally, in our last story, descending into madness. Before we get to our stories, I wanted to quickly ask if you would please take a minute to send this podcast to someone you know who loves horror as much as you do. We know there are hundreds of podcasts out there, and the biggest influence on what people listen to is what their friends recommend. I appreciate your support, and please send this to somebody that you think would love to hear a scary story. So, want to hear something scary? Beware, they're watching. Sometimes the things we invite into our lives have plans to never leave, like in this story inspired by Shay-lee. It all started when I was 8. Me and my family were having a get-together with friends who were family themselves. The older boys, being 12 and whatnot, decided to play Bloody Mary in one of the bedrooms, with wardrobes with mirrors on them covering the entire wall. I didn't join, terrified. Not that they would have invited me anyway. They continued to play almost all night, running out of the room screaming and swearing they saw Bloody Mary herself. The adults decided to mess around with them. Cody, Malachi, and Kelly banded together to secretly flicker the lights around the room, even going as far as pretending to head down to the shops for a few things just to use the TV remote through the window. The boys were terrified. At some point, the back door opened, and Cody came back inside. I was there when they planned the prank, so I knew what was going on. I remember smiling as I saw 2 figures hunched out the front of the window outside. One in a deep blue shirt, the other in a white puff sleeve. They had turned off all electricity moments before through the electrical box. The boys had absolutely freaked, almost going insane, trying to convince everyone they saw something out the window. At that point, the jig was up, and the adults had given up the joke. Malachi revealed himself through the window, proving to the younger boys it was all just a prank. But where was Kelly? I remember thinking. I looked up to her a lot, so I always gravitated toward her. I looked around behind me and saw Kelly standing there, laughing, almost beside me. But wasn't she just outside, almost 2 seconds ago? I stared. And where was her white puff sleeve shirt? Kelly stood there in an emerald green shirt. I blinked, my mind scrambling to make sense of it. Was I imagining things? I shook my head, convincing myself it had to be a mistake. But now noticing that no one was wearing white, I began to doubt myself. I decided not to say anything. I didn't want to scare myself too much. The longer I thought about it, the worse it would get. After dinner, the boys were yet again playing Bloody Mary. This time, they had actually invited me to play. I sat on the edge of the bed with my teddy, a pink dog called Woof. They played the game and nothing happened. Wow, so scary, I said, ready to leave the dark room. No, Shay, you have to spin and say it too, Nick said. Reluctantly, I walked up to the mirror, candle in hand, and spun while chanting, Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary. We all stood observing the mirror, looking for a change in our surroundings. My eyes settled on the corner of the room behind the closed door. A faint, foggy outline of a puff-sleeve dress hovered for a moment. I froze. My heart pounded. Was I imagining it? I turned my head quickly, but when I looked back, it was still there, just a shadowy figure faint like smoke. The room felt smaller now, suffocatingly so. My breath hitched in my throat. The figure was gone before I could even scream, but my body didn't listen. My legs buckled. I finally screamed, latching onto my brother's arm, digging my nails into his skin as I tried to get behind him. The boys jumped to turn the lights on, startled by my reaction. My mom came in to comfort me, and we went home shortly after. I couldn't stop shaking. I tried to tell myself it was nothing, just a trick of the light, but the feeling, the presence, it wouldn't leave. I still had incidents, ranging from seeing tall, lengthy figures in my kitchen to orbs in a cemetery. As I got older, the less these sightings happened, but it wasn't until a couple of years ago when I was 15 that things got much more intense. I was staying with my auntie when she casually mentioned something I had never heard her speak about before. She told me she had a special connection with the afterlife, a third eye. I froze, looking at her. She'd never said anything like this before. She shared a story about when she used to give her friends palm readings, how she knew too much about them, things no one else should have known. She said it was her party trick until one day she predicted the death of one of her best friend's dads. She completely stopped everything after that. I listened, unsure of how to react, but then she turned to me, her eyes narrowing, and she asked if I believed in that stuff. I nodded cautiously. Then she offered me a palm reading. Her first one was over 30 years. Of course, I agreed. What else was I supposed to do? It seemed like something I should do for the plot of my life. She gave me a reading. It was all pretty generic. But then she pointed out something that caught my attention. She said, "You have a special connection to the afterlife. Be careful when you explore that side of you." I laughed it off, but a cold shiver ran down my spine. I couldn't stop thinking about what she said. Be careful. I didn't know what to think about. It wasn't scary, but it made me uncomfortable. She never spoke of it again, and I didn't bring it up either, but the words stayed with me. Should I be worried? I've always found this kind of stuff fascinating, but now, I'm not so sure anymore. It was a week later when I first felt the shift. I had been trying to move on, to forget about the readings and the strange things I saw when I was younger, but it was like a door had been opened and something was clawing to get through. I woke up in the middle of the night. My room was dark, but I could feel it. Someone was watching. I glanced over, half expecting to see something there, but I shook it off. But then, in the faintest sliver of moonlight, I saw it, just for a split second, an outline, a figure, but it wasn't a shadow. It was more like flesh wrapped in smoke, just like I'd seen in the mirror. The panic hit before I could even breathe. My heart raced. I closed my eyes, willing to go away, but then I heard it, the faintest whisper. "Stop." The room felt suffocating again. I felt trapped. I threw myself out of bed, but it was like the walls were closing in. My mind was racing. What did it mean? Why was this happening? Had I opened something? Was I losing my mind? I tried to steady myself, tried to make sense of it, but the whispers grew louder. I heard them in every room, in every shadow, even in the mirror. I could see the faintest outline of a figure standing just behind me. It didn't speak, but I knew. It knew. It always had. I wasn't safe. The worst part, I couldn't escape. I didn't know if I ever could. I had been warned. Be careful. And now, it was too late. Too late to undo what I had opened up. Too late to stop the whispering. Am I just too weak to control it? Is this all in my head? Or isn't it?
Have you ever felt something watching you, even when you're alone? Did you ever discover who or what had their eye on you? Tell us your scary stories by sending us an email at somethingscary@snarled.com. Sometimes a message is there to guide you. Other times they are meant to be heeded, like in this story inspired by Ashley.
She wasn't sure what it meant. One word, etched with purpose onto the slip of paper. "Today," it said in black, bold letters. She found it on her pillow after stretching out her legs and sliding it into her slippers. It was weird, but she figured one of her nieces made it when they were over the other day. Through the uncanny ways of destiny and magic mostly reserved for movies, it somehow made its way to her bed. She found the next one by the coffee maker. Another skinny strip of paper read, "You," the word thick with retraced pencil marks. She pursed her mouth and picked it up, debating how bothered or threatened she should feel. The first piece of paper could have been a serendipitous event, but discovering a second piece felt intentional. And while her home wasn't necessarily worthy of the cover of Good Housekeeping, she was pretty sure this note wasn't here yesterday. She was about to crumple it up when a sneaky little voice said, "Seize the day," which she thought must have been her inner monologue, but she did check the kitchen over both shoulders to be sure that some intruder with a positive mantra wasn't poised in her house. She bustled to her bedroom to grab the first note and laid them both out on the countertop. "Today, you." She chose to embrace the spontaneity and pushed aside her hesitation. This felt like the markings of a fun little scavenger hunt from the universe. So she let loose a deep breath and turned off the drip stop. After some social media scrolling with coffee and a creamy bagel, she jaunted back to her bedroom and changed for her semi-daily jog. "It takes 40 days to form a habit," she told her reflection in the bathroom mirror. If that was true, she was only 1 week away from becoming an avid runner. She picked up her hairbrush to find a greeting from 3 more blunt black letters. "Can." A slight shiver whizzed up her spine, but she picked up the mischievous memo. She finished fixing her ponytail and placed the third note in line. It wasn't much of a message yet, but the day was still early. The metallic squeak of her mail slot alerted her to a stack of ads. She stepped onto her porch to grab the delivery. The late spring air was rejuvenating after an exceptionally brutal and drawn-out winter, and she savored the sunshine beaming through the window panes. She tossed the mail onto the table and leaned to pull her feet into her sneakers. The insole of her right foot presented a new puzzle piece, embrace. She read aloud as she walked the note to the others. "Huh?" She twisted her lips to the side, looking over the partial sentence. She shoved her foot into her shoe, popped her earbuds in, and bounced out the door. If there was any movie magic at play in this day, a jog around the town might present her with a perfect meet cute. The glow of the sun gave her a little boost, and she became so focused on running that she narrowly missed the large pile left by an unknown canine in the middle of the sidewalk. She skirted around it awkwardly, landing unevenly on her left foot, rolling her ankle, and pitching forward into the grass and concrete. An irrepressible groan escaped as she shifted backward onto the balls of her feet. It was pretty tender, but she would live. Might need to demote her jog to a walk, though. She was preparing herself to stand when she glimpsed it on the ground beside her foot. Another crisp rectangular slip of paper. It was upside down. The word "mother" was revealed as she turned it over in her palm. Her stomach started flip-flopping. She lost her mother last winter in an unexpected turn of events. A fall down the stairs resulted in a broken wrist and a gash on her forehead. The doctor sent her mother home with a cast and some extra bandages. They joked about the gnarly wound and how menacing she would look with a big scar. They ate spaghetti and a half-gallon of generic cookie dough ice cream. "You're my sweet girl, aren't you, lucky Leah?" her mother said faintly while dozing off on the couch. Leah helped her up off the couch before saying goodnight. Then her mother died of a stroke in her sleep. Leah pushed herself hard all the way home, biting her cheeks to distract from the needles piercing her ankle. She could already feel the warm swell of fluid beneath her skin. She grimaced. Had she picked up that note, or had it been in her pocket all along? She couldn't remember. Images flashed of her mother kissing the boo-boo on her knee, her mother pushing her fingers into the dirt, her mother laughing heartedly, flicking spaghetti sauce across her face. Then the pearly white coffin. The quicker she moved, the faster the vision of the wooden box inched closer and closer up the aisle. She let out a strangled cry as she opened her front door. She sighed, pulling the paper slip from her sports bra. She didn't even want to look at it as she begrudgingly set it down with the other slips. "Today you can embrace your mother," she said hoarsely. She settled on the couch, flipping through the newspaper ads when another slip fell out. Nature. The words on the other slips formed a sentence. "Today you can embrace Mother Nature." Surely that was it. She would go to the store and get some new plants. Mom would appreciate that. Later, as she dug in the soil, she heard an argument escalating across the street. She peeled off her gardening gloves and limped toward her house to call the police. But before she reached the door, a loud pop ripped through the air. A piercing pain tore through her back and stomach. She crumpled onto the walkway, gasping, her fingers clawing for her phone. Her vision blurred as she tried to focus. Her breaths were shallow, sharp. She forced herself to move, dragging her injured body forward, inch by inch, toward the front door. Then she saw it. A single slip of paper, stark white against the dark wood, fluttering slightly in the breeze. It was pinned to the door at eye level, waiting for her. With shaky fingers, she reached up and pulled it free. The pain in her stomach roared, but she forced herself to look. A single word. "Don't." The word tilted. The note slipped from her grasp, landing in a small pool of her own blood. Somewhere in the back of her mind, a voice whispered, growing louder, pressing against the edges of her fading consciousness. "Today, you can embrace Mother Nature. Don't."
Have you ever felt the universe was speaking to you? How did you know when to listen and when to run? Sometimes the mind's deepest fears are dismissed as mere imagination until they take on a life of their own, like in this abridged telling of the famous story The Yellow Wallpaper by Charlotte Perkins Gilman.
I am writing this in secret. There's no one to talk to, and even if I could, who would understand? I don't know what is real anymore. My husband, John, insists I rest. Locked away in this room, alone with this strange wallpaper. He says it's for my health, but I feel it pulling at me, like a weight sinking deeper with every day. We've come to this house for the summer. John is a physician, calm and reasonable, always talking in a voice that brooks no argument. He tells me I am sick, that I need rest. No reading, no writing, he orders, as if those things are the cause of my illness, not the remedy. He claims the confinement will cure me. It hasn't. It only makes things worse. The room we stay in is the former nursery, and though I had no choice but to accept it, I can't help but feel trapped in its yellowed walls. The wallpaper is the worst part. I can't escape it. At first, I thought it was simply an ugly design, something out of a horror story. The yellow is so dull, so sickly. It's as though it's been fading for years, yet it clings stubbornly to the walls. There are odd patterns, as if they were meant to be beautiful, but were distorted in the execution. I can't make sense of it, but something about it seems to stare back at me, watching. I've tried to avoid it, but it pulls my eyes every time I turn my head. There's a peculiar pattern in the middle, a shape that looks like a broken cage, with bars stretching out across the walls. I wonder if I'm seeing things. Sometimes it seems as though the pattern moves, writhing and shifting like something alive. I hate it, and yet, it's all I can think about. Each day feels longer than the last. John's visits are brief, and his attention is consumed by his work, leaving me with only the yellow walls for company. I tell myself it's just my imagination, but every time I look at the wallpaper, I feel its grip tighten on my mind. The way the bars of the pattern seem to encircle the room, trapping me, suffocating me. It is as if something is lurking behind it. I have to find out what it is. I started with a faint movement, a fluttering that seemed almost too subtle to catch. At night, in the quiet hours when the house is still, I hear rustling. It's not the wind or the house settling. It's as though something is trapped in the walls, struggling to break free. The longer I stare, the more I believe it's real. I've seen shadows dart across the paper, and once I could have sworn I saw a figure, a shape that resembled a woman crawling behind the wallpaper, trapped within the confines of the design. I've told no one. John would laugh at me, dismiss it as nothing more than a symptom of my condition. But how can I be mad if I see the truth? I feel a coldness creeping up my spine when I think of the figure behind the paper, the one that struggles to break free. She is there. I know it. She's been there all along, trapped beneath the layers of paint and pattern. I wonder if she's been there for years, waiting for someone to notice, someone to set her free. It's growing stronger. The longer I stare at the wallpaper, the more I see her. She moves now, more just a fluttering shadow. I see her creeping along the edges of the paper, crawling on all fours. The pattern, I realize, is her prison. The yellow wallpaper is her cage, her confining barrier. I want to rip it down, to tear away her prison and set her free. But how can I? How can I explain what I see when no one else believes it? John says I must stay calm, that it's best if I rest. He doesn't understand, though. The wallpaper is just paper. It's alive. It knows I'm here. I've tried to tear it away, to peel back the edges, but the more I pull, the more it fights back. It's like the paper has a life of its own, sticking to my hands as I try to rip it from the walls. It resists, pulling as though it doesn't want to be disturbed. I can feel her behind me now, the woman. She's watching me. I know it. She's in there behind the yellow, and she wants to get out. She wants to escape just as much as I do. Sometimes, when I close my eyes, I think I hear her whispering to me, calling me to help her, and I want to. I have to. John is away now. He left for an entire day, and for the first time in what feels like forever, I'm alone. I don't know why, but this is the moment. This is the time I've been waiting for. The wallpaper is calling to me. I will tear it down. I will uncover the truth. The woman must be freed. She's been waiting for me. I start to pull at the edges, the corners of the paper peeling away with surprising ease. The sound is almost comforting now. It's crackling, ripping sound like a release, a breaking free of something trapped inside. The pattern unravels beneath my fingers. I don't care if I ruin the room or the walls. I have to do this. The woman is closer now, just on the other side. I can almost hear her breathing. I rip harder, faster as the paper comes away in shreds. The woman's form is becoming clearer. She's there, creeping, crawling on all fours, her face hidden in the shadows of the torn paper. Her movements are jerky, like she's unsure, afraid to come out. I can't stop. I have to help her. She's me. I know it now. She is me. She has been trapped in that wallpaper all this time, and I am the one who can set her free. When John returns, I will be gone. There's no need to lock me away anymore. I am free now. The woman is free. We are free. I have to go, but I know she will be with me forever. I have finally broken free.
Have you ever been in a situation where someone thought they knew what was best for you, even when you disagreed? How did you handle it? Were you able to take back control of your own life?
This week's podcast stories were edited by Sarah Lukasiewicz, narration by Blair Bathory, audio edited and mixed by Fitz Harris, additional audio editing by Calvin Linderman, produced by Anna Villalobos, executive produced by Gail Gilman, music by Sapphire Sindalo and Calvin Linderman. If you have a story you'd like to submit, send me an email at somethingscary@snarled.com. Don't forget to watch the video version of Something Scary over at youtube.com/snarled. And if you'd like to support the show and everything we do at Snarled, join our Patreon at patreon.com/snarled.
As always, witches, thank you for joining me. And remember, leave me a comment and let me know you're enjoying the video version of the podcast. I'll see you next time. Sweet screams.